నమస్కారం. నా ఈ ప్రయత్నం మీకు నచ్చినట్లయితే గనక మన ఛానల్‌ని సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేసుకొని, పై జాబితాలోని మరిన్ని వీడియోలను చూడటం ద్వారా మీ నైపుణ్యాలను, జ్ఞానాన్ని కూడా అభివృద్ధి చేసుకోవడానికి ప్రయత్నించండి. జై హింద్. Please like, share and subscribe for more videos. Thank you.
Attacking the castled king is no easy task. Not only is a castled king protected behind 3 pawns, it usually is also defended by pieces. One way to attack a castled king is by sacrificing a piece. This is often a very risky strategy, because if the attack fails, being down a piece usually results in disaster. Another way to attack the king is the pawn storm. A pawn storm is when at least 2 or more pawns work together to try and force open lines to attack the enemy king. Pawn storms can be risky, but sacrificing a pawn or 2 to make the opponent's king weak can have great rewards. In this position, former world champion Michal Tal, known for his incredible attacking skills, has the black pieces. Both sides have castled on opposite sides of the board, so advancing pawns on the side where your king is not castled is often a strong idea. Tal wants to open up lines to attack the enemy king. One idea for black is to play a3. Black is hoping to play a takes b2 on the next turn, ripping open the a file. Unfortunately for black, white can simply keep the position closed by playing b3. When black does not have a good way to open up the position against the enemy king. In the game, Tal played the powerful move b3. One thing to remember about a pawn storm is that not only do you want to remove your opponent's pawns from a file, you also want to remove your own pawns to open up lines for attack. b3 attacks both the c2 and a2 pawns, which means a file will be forced open no matter what white does. White allows the c file to be open with c takes b3. And after a takes b3, white now plays the losing move. When defending against a pawn storm, you want to keep as many lines closed around your king as possible. White should have played a3. Although white's defenses have been weakened and may allow for a future sacrifice on that square, instead of keeping the position as closed as possible, white opens up the a file with a takes b3. Now that the c and a files are open for black's major pieces to use for attack, Tal finishes the game in brilliant fashion, starting with the incredible move bishop e2. Tal sacrifices the bishop in order to open up the c file. We'll see why this matters after queen takes e2. Black threatens checkmate with queen a5. Tal sacrificed the bishop to open up the c file, so black's rook on c8 prevents the white king from easily escaping the checkmate attack. White tries to block the c file with rook c3, but Tal's powerful attack continues after queen a2 check, king c2. Notice the b2 pawn is now pinned to the white king, so black forces the white king up the board with rook takes c3 check. After king takes c3, Tal sacrifices a second bishop with bishop b4 check, attracting the king to the deadly b4 square. If white refuses the sacrifice and plays king c2, black finishes the game quickly with rook c8 check. Since king d3 allows queen takes b3 checkmate, white is forced to play queen c4. When black destroys white's defenses after rook takes c4 check, b takes c4, and queen takes c4 check, followed by capturing the light-squared bishop with check. In the game, white accepted the sacrifice with king takes b4. When Tal ended the game after queen a5 check, white's king is forced to play king c4, setting up the skewer queen a6 check. As white will lose a queen with a winning attack for black, white resigned. Let's take a look at another example of the pawn storm. In this position, both sides have castled on opposite sides of the board, so it is a race between white's pawn storm on the king side versus black's pawn storm on the queen side. Notice that all of White's pawns are already on the 5th rank, so White crashes through first with the powerful move f6. Black does not want to open up the g-file after g takes f6 and g takes f6, so Black tries to keep the position as closed as possible with bishop f8. White could open up the f-file with f takes g7, but White wants to do more damage with the pawn storm and plays g6. The pawn storm crashes through, ready to rip open lines in front of the Black king. If Black tries to keep the position closed with h6, White opens up lines to the Black king after g takes f7 check, followed by f takes g7, completely destroying the Black king's defense. After g6, if Black plays h takes g6, White plays h takes g6. The h-file is opened, and White is already threatening rook h8 check, followed by a quick checkmate after queen h2. There is no defense for Black. Finally, if Black plays f takes g6, Black's defenses are overwhelmed after f7 check, king h8, h takes g6. White threatens rook takes h7 checkmate, so after h6, the pawn storm has set up serious weaknesses around Black's king. White finishes the attack with the powerful sacrifice bishop takes h6. The h-file is opened, so Black cannot allow White to move the bishop and discover a check against the king. So after g takes h6, Black is checkmated after queen f6 check, bishop g7. Now that the bishop is pinned to the king, White ends the game with rook takes h6. Checkmate. Let's take a look at one more position together. So far, we have looked at pawn storms when the kings have castled on opposite sides of the board. Successful pawn storms can happen when the kings are castled on the same side of the board, but there is more risk involved because this type of pawn storm creates weaknesses in front of your king. What should you do when your opponent rushes forward with a pawn storm? We know that we should keep the position as closed as possible in front of our king, but we should also try to attack the center and open up lines for our pieces. In this position, Black should play the powerful move d5, attacking the center and trying to open up lines for Black's pieces to counterattack. If White captures the pawn with e takes d5, Black recaptures with knight takes d5. And after knight takes d5, e takes d5. By trading knights, Black now has pressure down the c-file, attacking the pawn on c2. If White defends the pawn and improves the knight's position with knight d4, Black can now play bishop d6. Black attacks the f4 pawn and opens up the rook's pressure down the e-file. Black's pieces are coming to life, and White's advanced pawns on the king side are more a weakness to defend than a strength. Instead of capturing the d5 pawn, if White pushes forward with e5, Black's knight leaps into the center with knight e4. White will have problems advancing the kingside pawns, because if the f-pawn moves, the e5 pawn is without protection. Black now threatens a fork on g3, a weak square caused by White's poorly prepared pawn storm. And Black also threatens to win a pawn after knight takes c3. White's position has several issues and will have a difficult game. Now it's your turn to practice attacking the enemy king with pawn storms.